Okay, students, in this video, what I like to do is go over our in-class assignment today, go over the first problem, the first two problems, and make sure that you feel comfortable with this. So, in our first problem, we had a publisher that had, a new novel, and there were some fixed costs for producing the book, and the fixed costs were $55,000. But there were also some variable costs, and the variable costs were $1.60 per book. And so we decided in class that one way to approach this problem is to do, and what I like to remind you here is how to do a cost model. And so we said that for the cost model, what we discussed in class today was that we were going to let X represent the number of books produced. And then we were going to let C stand for the cost, and then each book costs $1.60 to produce, and then X is the number of books, so together this represents the variable cost, but there's also that fixed cost that always costs $55,000. And so we have to consider both, and so this is the model that we came up for cost. And then we said, well, there's also, the book is sold, and it's being sold for $11 each. And so there's a revenue model. This is the money that we're gonna collect by selling these books at $11 a piece. And in this case, X represents the number of books sold. And so what we're trying to do here now is find the model for the revenue. And so in this case, we called it R. And we said, well, revenue is really 11 times X, because each book is being sold for $11. X is the number of books, so 11 times X is actually the model. Okay, so now we have this, and we're trying to figure out how to solve this. And one of the things that we discovered in class, and some of you discovered on your own, was, well, really what I want is, if I want profit, to get profit, I want the revenue to be bigger than the cost. And so the inequality that you solved was, you said, well, I want 11x to be bigger than 1.6x plus 55,000. By the way, notice I took off that zero. I didn't need it. This zero right here, it was actually, you don't need it, but if you have it, it's okay. So then we subtracted, and we got 9.4x is greater than 55,000. And then you divide it by 9.4. And you got that X had to be bigger than 5,851.06. But then you said, oh, that doesn't make sense. We want to produce and sell at least 5,852 books. And then what I ask you to do, I want you to solve this in a nice, neat way that I can read. In class today, what you did was some scratch work. You kind of played around with it. You just kind of, is what we do in math. We kind of play around and see what we can figure out. But eventually, I'd like you to be able to show me a nice, clean piece of work, and maybe a good explanation, like I said earlier, to your boss, how you would explain this to your boss. Okay. Now, the second problem that we dealt with today, the second part was here. What if now the company wants to continue selling the book, and I'm sorry about that, but now what happened was that the cost changed. Now it's $2.10 per book, not $1.60. And in fact, let me bring that down again, because I want to show the cost model. So it's $2.10 per book. And so now this is completely different. And so what we'll do here is we will create a new cost model. So the issue is, this is no good anymore. This model here doesn't work. So we need a new cost model. That's the only difference with this problem, is that we need a new cost model. And this new cost model has to take into account that now the variable cost is $2.10 per book. And so what you guys told me in class was that, well, this new cost model, each book, what changes is $1.60. This is what's changed. And so instead of $1.60, it's $2.10. And then the fixed cost is still the same. But the general problem doesn't change. I want profit. And in order for me to have profit, I want the revenue to be bigger than the cost. And so what this means is I still want 11x to be bigger than 2.10x plus 55,000. And I didn't need that zero, but I forgot, and I left it there. But again, we plug this into our calculator. We subtract 210 on both sides. We get 8.9x. I want this to be bigger than 55,000. We divide both sides by 8.9. Again, you can use your calculator, and I get that x has to be bigger than 6,179.78, which doesn't make sense, but the actual answer is that we need to produce and sell at least 6,180 books to turn a profit. And again, like I said earlier, just work on your explanations, work on what it is that would make it easier for others to understand. And really, that's kind of the goal of the course, to solve problems, sure, but also to be able to explain our reasoning. Okay? All right, the next video we'll go over part C, and then we'll go over number 2.